Hello and welcome to a new episode of Shashka Pursuit. So today I want to talk about cutting and fencing, the differences and how you can learn one thing from the other. So one basic thing, fencing and cutting are two different things. In historical fencing you're trying to minimize the range of your movement, or let's say move as wide as necessary and make small movements. So you go into a guard position, don't exaggerate, just keep your guard upwards. Don't make too big movements. When you do a cut, you don't want to touch your target, go a little bit through and go back. So advance, guard position or parry, make small movements. In test cutting, you can have a solid stance as you wish, like this or like this. You keep it solid. And there's when you want to cut, you can take your time, aim, and use your whole body. Fencing again. Try small movements, advance, retreat, whatever. You don't want to expose yourself or exaggerate your movements. Keep them small. Doesn't matter if you're linear fencing or if you try to angle. Again, try to do smaller movements so you don't get exposed. If you try push away, you're open. So inside guard like this. So shoulder width. Outside guard same. Inside guard, outside guard. So for the cuts, so you got basically, depends on the system, 1, 2, 7 or 1, 2, 8 cuts. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 or even 8. But it depends on the system you're using or you're trying. The point where your blade rotates, also depending, you can cut with the wrist, only with your wrist. You can use your elbow. So moulinet is usually done with the wrist. You can do it as a wide motion with the elbow, or even with your shoulder as the point of rotation. This is probably more on horseback or so. So you can really usually just try to cut from elbow or from the wrist. Same as for cutting. Next thing you can learn for historical fencing from test cutting is the so-called edge alignment. Be sure that you keep the angle with your blade when you cut. You don't want to hit with a flat, you don't want to hit with an awkward angle, just want where your cut is intended to go, the edge should be. So there's one angle. This prevents you from your blade rotating and your blade gets stuck or will glance off. Next thing, if you have this long steel bar called a blade and you hit against it, there's one point that isn't moving. This is the so-called point of percussion. So in theory, on paper, if you hit with this section, the cut will be the cleanest there. But usually you try to cut with the last part of the blade because the acceleration there, the speed, is the highest, the most. So depends. There's a debate which part you should use to cut with. So the less moving you want to cut, small vibrations come, and one part isn't moving. The tip, on the other hand, is the fastest thing to cut with. So to grip, in this case the Shashka here. There aren't as many manuals on the Shashka as on other sabers. There's one recommend a thumb grip, so it's called the handshake grip, as if you want to give someone a handshake, place the saber there, so you got it. Put your thumb on the back. This gives you very good tip control. If you want to fight more tip heavy, call it like this, or you can say you do it with a hammer grip. So you're not as mobile in the wrist as with the other, but your strikes will be more powerful than with just the wrist. And you can use your lower arm, from the elbow, the cut's better. Okay, to implement the techniques from historical fencing into the cutting, you can try to do cuts from the guard, or double cuts, or a moulinette. So if you just want to cut, it's okay. Find a good stance, solid stance, put your weight down, and then you can cut. Keep in mind, don't exaggerate too much. Be consciousness about what's in your surrounding. You don't hit any solid objects. There are enough videos on YouTube where people want to cut something and then they hit a solid wall or anything, or they even try to cut themselves. So never ever put any body parts where you want to cut. Don't grab something and say, I'm gonna hold it still so I can cut it. Never do. Look into the direction where people might come from. So in my case, people might come from there. Behind me there's nothing, so I'm gonna face more in this direction. I can see people see what I'm doing, so I won't hit anyone without attention. Be sure no dogs or cats are around, so you won't harm anything. Just be careful if you don't train, or if you haven't sufficient advisors, don't do this. And train first of all the movement with a blunt one. Just the cuts. You can look at the different manuals. There are Roworth, Hutton, or I think everyone, Taylor. They all got crosses with the sections and the cuts. One, do it slowly, two, and repeat, so you're safe. And don't exaggerate. You know, these are just the basic cuts to cut. There's no fencing involved, nothing, just get the mechanic right to just cut. So doesn't matter if you take a step like this, or imagine you're on a horse. So we'll start with this. Try to keep the same level. ladies and gentlemen, I hope you liked today's video. Didn't work as good as I expected, but still practicing. Always practice. So I hope in the next couple of weeks friends and me will get some tatami mats for our club, and looking forward to cut these with the Hanwei Shashka. So stay tuned and bye.